Try not to drop this football for the intro, but what's cool and what's going on? I know, pretty bad puns out here. We're headed to the dog pound, and we've been in the dog pound for this one for the Cleveland Browns, watching this football team. It has been a little bit of a disaster in many ways. Just the offense. The defense is excellent. You basically have a case of the best defense versus the best offense, and what goes to show what wins games consistently. Like, you can have a really, really good defense, but if you have no offense, it's so challenging to win football games in the National Football League. You have to be able to put up explosive plays and explosive points, or you're not going to compete even with the best defense in the NFL.
Let's go through this roster, talk about what they need to do this offseason. Andrew Berry, if he's still the head coach, the GM. Kevin Stefanski's going to be on the hot seat for sure. What does Haslam do? There's a lot of things we need to talk about: coaching staff, free agency, and a 7-round mock draft. So let's do it. Let's start with the offense here. Notable. I want to highlight some good players first up, okay, because it's not all bad. I love Harold Fanning Jr. I mean, he even catching the case of the drops of this past week. I'm telling you, it's going around. Jerry Jeudy, it's not been good. Come on, Jerry. He's so talented. He just can't catch the football. It's frustrating. Anyway, you got Jamari Thrash. Isaiah Bond's been pretty good, actually, for them, too. I am definitely saying the wide receiver is a big need for them. Going back to some of the stars, though, Judkins, Joel Bitonio. Okay, so Fanning, Judkins, and Bitonio, those are going to be my top 3 stars for the offense here. Judkins got a little banged up this past week. However, when you look to the future, I think they get a really good running back room. I think their tight end room's fine. Just get a good, solid blocking tight end. Njoku's a free agent. And then offensive line is definitely a big need here. Okay, so let's look at this as a whole. Quarterback is still the number one need. We have to look at quarterback. Gabriel, I think he could have a Bo Nix type of better, more explosive plays as the season goes along. But as of right now, it's a lot of dink and dunk, short, intermediate. I think he was only charted with like a couple of plus 20 throws so far. He just doesn't throw the ball deep. And that is part of like you're trying not to make big errors, and I get that. But at the same time, you got to be able to take chances. You got to be able to score points, especially when you have such a good defense like Dylan. Go ahead and make some big plays. Like, even if you have to have more turnovers, I'd rather see them have more points and let their defense do their thing and cook, because that's, you know what I mean? That's the thing. So hopefully Gabriel, as the season goes along, we see a little bit more explosive plays. Shador Sanders, there's a good chance if things go this way, he's going to get an opportunity at some point. So I get it. Like, quarterback to me is still the number one need, even with Shador Sanders being on the bench. I want to see what he looks like. I really do. But at the same time, we need a quarterback. So I'm not going to completely let this mock draft and this overall process. I'm still looking at it in the lens of you need a quarterback, especially if you're picking top 3 at the point. Overall, I'd even stick in Bailey Zappi. At least he can. I mean, Bailey Zappi, you can say what you want about his decision making, but he'll take chances and stuff. Maybe that's what this team needs. Even Joe Flacco was having to take chances, and just goes to show you when Joe Flacco has a little bit of help, he can win football games. So it wasn't Joe Flacco. Overall, quarterback is still the number one need here. It just is. Wide receiver is a close second, and offensive line is a close tie for second. It's like all 3 of those things. You could say, you can hear me. I can hear you on the argument where it's like, hey, we don't have a good offensive line. We don't have good wide receivers. There's no quarterback that's going to succeed in this environment. And I understand that argument, and I feel it. I think that is something that is very notable here. They do have a good amount of draft capital, and that's going to help them out, especially in a good wide receiver class. They can add a huge addition here to help them out, and maybe you can do something, get creative with a trade package or something like that. They're going to have to figure a lot of things out. Overall, quarterback is still, I keep coming back to it and saying, you know what, we got to get a quarterback in here. But wide receiver, definitely a huge need. Offensive line, huge need. And with this offensive line, they could have very easily 5 open spots this offseason. It really is going to be a challenge to rebuild this offensive line. Left tackle, DeJuan Jones, he's been injured. Jack Conklin's been injured. He's come back from concussion. Cornelius Lucas been out there. He should really be a swing tackle. Cam Robinson, they picked up. He was being banged up. They just picked up Thayer Munford. They have had so many injuries. It's been a problem. This is maybe the number one need on the roster right now, is finding a true left tackle to protect your quarterback. Now, technically, Gabriel, it'd be a right tackle, would be the blind side. Overall, they need tackles. Interior, they need help. Posick and Wyatt Teller, at this point in their career, it's just not the same. I mean, they've been great football players throughout their career, but it's definitely been a downhill extension. They're not getting a whole ton of movement right now. And even with Joe Antonio, he's not the most athletic guy at this point in his career. He's still a very good offensive lineman. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, of course, first ballot, in my opinion. However, just the way that Stefanski runs this offense and more of a wide zone system, they don't really have the personnel for that anymore. So improving the personnel, Wyatt Teller, Ethan Posick in general just haven't been great in my eyes in general. So they just need to overhaul this offensive line. Maybe Luke Whippler. All right. I mean, like, he's got a lot of promise and he's looked good in preseason and stuff like that. We'll see. It's just, I don't know. Okay. I'm still going to be drafting a center / guard, helping this interior, because no matter what, let's figure it out. We need help on the offensive line, no matter how you look at this. Tackle being the number one priority, wide receiver, interior offensive lineman, quarterback, all those things we need to look at. On to the defense side of the ball here. And let's start off with the defense being something that, even if they did nothing this offseason, would still be pretty dang good. Now, they still have to do some things, and we have to look into the future, mainly with this defense, because guys like, for example, Tyson Campbell, Miles Harden, we could look at some developmental dudes behind those guys. Denzel Ward's getting a little bit older now, too, even though he's still playing at a high level. That's like a 4th, 5th round need. You could bring in a slot corner maybe in the 4th round. That seems to be a good sweet spot for finding some slot corners, 4th, 5th round, to compete with him. And then you could draft and develop a outside cornerback that can, be another competition in depth. Like, that's what they need. Emerson, just coming off the Achilles. I don't know, maybe he resigns on a cheap 1-year contract to be able to prove it scenario. Who knows? Overall, they need some depth in this cornerback room. Safety, another area they have to think about for the future, because Delpit and Hickman's a free agent this year. Now he's a restricted, so he should be brought back, whether it's a second-round tender or a transition tag. Delpit's a free agent in 2027, so figuring that Hickman's back for another season, Delpit's in for one more season. Both of those guys would be free agent 2027, which would mean, hey, we might want to draft somebody in the 4th, 5th round to be able to develop there for the future in case you only bring back one of those guys. Linebacker should be good. JOK, I've heard there's no been real injury update. I know he's out for the year and everything like that, but I'm expecting him to be back in 2026, and that would be Devin Bush has been fantastic, and I think he's going to get paid this offseason. Carson Swessinger is potentially defensive player of the year so far. He's definitely a candidate. And he's coming off his worst game. I get it. He let go of the Darnell Washington, kind of missed that. You can put that on him. Overall, I think he's been fantastic and somebody that has just popped on screen every single game I've watched. And I've watched all the games on Cleveland. And yeah, he's been a dog out there. So he has been a huge draft pick. So it's not all bad, right? Fanning, Swessinger, I think Bond's been a good one for them. Mason Grant's been solid. And we'll talk about him here in a minute. Yeah, you could have said, oh, we should have gotten Banks. Yeah, maybe hindsight 2020. You could have said, let's go and get Banks instead because they need left tackle more than they need DT. But I think Graham's going to be a great football player. Linebacker, though, going back to this, I think is fine as long as the JOK. If JOK's injury concern is more concerning than what I'm leading on to with this, then maybe you go ahead and try your best to bring back Devin Bush if you can, because he's been so fantastic. But he's also going to get paid, and there's going to be some other teams lining up for his services too. Overall, this is not going to be like a huge draft need for me. Maybe it's more of a UDFA type of thing. Defensive line, I would just say, is depth. They need some edge depth since Alex Wright's a free agent. He's played really well this season, actually, too. I've seen him make a lot of plays, and it helps when 3 guys have to cover Myles Garrett because he's just utterly dominant. Hey, Malik Collins, he's another one. He has had his best season in his career. In my opinion, he's had his best season. He has been literally a stud. He has been legit one of the best defense tackles in football right now. So I think that Collins is definitely he is a dog out there as well. Michael Carter is getting back from IR, so you'll have some more help there. But Mason Graham, Malik Collins, Michael Hall, and Aiden Hutchinson is also they're all under contract after this season. So I'm not super worried about the DT position. I think they're a really, really good spot there and have some good depth. You could pick up a guy in UDFA ways or something like that. But overall, I would say cornerback, safe, secondary, and edge room that get some depth there. Those are the top needs. Those are more of like round 3 through round 7 type of needs. Let's go on to the coaching staff though now here. And there's a really good chance that they clean house. So I list some candidates. I put these candidates down typically when teams need a coach or whatever. And with this, I still like Stefanski. There's plenty holding on to me where I know Stefanski is a good coach, and I could see him getting a head coach gig elsewhere and really doing well. It just comes down, he's had a little bit bad luck here with this team, and you can blame on him too. Like it's 3 ways between Haslam, Barry, and Stefanski. Who made the ultimate decision on Baker Mayfield and being traded? That really is what I would love to know. And if it was a tandem effort or if Haslam overruled everybody and said, I'm giving him a guaranteed contract because that's what we're doing, I don't know. Really, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it was a huge mistake. They're probably calling Tampa, hey, 4 first-round picks for Baker back, please. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah, I would just say right now, the coaching-wise, these guys are definitely on the hot seat. I love Jim Schwartz as well. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. I'm not going to pin the blame on him. If they clean staff, though, then there's a good chance they're going to bring in all new coaching staff. So that's why I list these all there. We'll see what happens, though. For right now, there's a good chance they're going to end up cleaning house. And that's just kind of what it is. That's what happens, man. It really is. But moving on to free agency now. And I'm going to start with the team cuts. I'm not letting anybody go, mainly because I really can't get out of any of these contracts. So I'm going to move on to the restructure period. And for the restructure period here, I would just rather go ahead and say, Deshaun Watson, let's restructure his contract, because in this case, rather than just cutting him, you're doing more worse than good in my eyes, because of the way the contract is. And I would rather save some of that money right now to be able to bring in some guys, help the offensive line out. If you're going to draft a quarterback early in the draft, I want to make sure I feel more confident in that scenario. So that's why I would rather restructure and push a little more money there. And then we can get some more help in free agency, re-sign some guys, et cetera, et cetera. Denzel Ward, we're going to also restructure some money there. That's about all I can do. And it's not all I want to do. It's going to get us up to $60 million to help us out come free agency period, where Malachi Corley, I'm going to give him a little contract to give us a little another gadget guy. I thought he had a pretty good week in his first chance here for them, and more of like jet sweeps and stuff like that. Like, that's what he is. He's going to be a yak guy, but maybe they can use somebody like that. Just bring in, he's going to be more of like a 4th, 5th receiver for us. And none of that's really going to be guaranteed. He's going to come in and compete for the roster. He'll probably get like 200,000 to 300,000 of that guaranteed. And you can try him out in camp and stuff like that. Have some competition with Bond and, Thrash and all those guys. And then Bitonio, I'm simply saying, if he wants to come back, he can always come back, right? He is a Cleveland Brown for life type of player. And I'm hoping that he would come back here with a rookie quarterback to say, you know what? Okay, I'll give it another chance. Maybe I want to play for another year or two and see what happens, because this team is still in a chance where they can win very quickly if they find a decent quarterback. That's really the thing. So we'll see about Bitonio, but I'm going to give him a 1 year, $15 million, $12 million cap hit, because the way it's actually structured right now in his contract, he's got a lot of future, void years and stuff. So we can kind of slide some of that money into the future once again. So $12 million hit. Defensively, I'm going to bring back Depot Cameron Thomas. Alex Wright just kind of priced me out a little bit. I think he's going to get more money. So that's why I'm going to let him go. I think he's a good football player. I'd like to bring him back. It's going to come down to the little dollars and change. Jerome Baker, I'll probably bring him back as some depth, $2 million, not expensive, as some depth, just in case for JOK. That's really what I'm looking at. If JOK isn't 100%, we need some depth, then Jerome Baker can step in there. He was going to be a lot cheaper than Bush. I know Bush is going to get paid big time. On to the restricted free agents here in practice squad, Phil. Guys like kicker, long snapper, Rongdy Hickman. I gave him the transition tag. Blake Fisher here. Sorry, Blake Whiteheart. Blake Fisher. Blake Whiteheart here. Also going to bring him in there. $4 million for the practice squad. That can vary. I know the Browns this year, I think, paid like 3.6 for the practice squad. It just depends from year to year. I'm just going to budget around $4 million for that. And there's also a little bit of miscellaneous expense, because there's other exclusive restricted guys that I didn't include here that could also be signed. Then we go on to the outside free agent period. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in a couple guys here on offense. Julius Chestnut's just going to give him a little bit of depth in the running back room. I feel like he'd just be a little cheaper than Jerome Ford. Ford might get like a $2 to $3 million contract elsewhere. Daniel Falalele, I'm bringing him in from Baltimore. I'm going to go snatch him over there. We have to pay him, but at the end of the day, I need help. And Falalele, he always seems to struggle at the beginning of the year, but he does seem to get better as the year's gone along. And that's kind of the way it's gone so far this year as well. Falalele, not a terrible player. He's super strong. And if they're going to go with more of a gap power system, then I think Falalele would be great. It's going to depend on if Stefanski's back or if a new coaching staff comes in. And that's something where I just don't know at this moment. So I'm just bringing in an offensive lineman, and then we'll adjust this. When we're in the offseason, I'll definitely do I'll probably do 2 more Browns mock drafts at least. But Falalele here will be the signing. And that's an average of $18 million. And it puts him in the likes of guys like Aaron Banks, who got paid this offseason. Defensively, I'm going to bring in some depth guys here. This is really all I can afford at this point. Josh Pascal, Joshua Williams, and Ronnie Thomas, all going to give us some depth in those key areas. and just be rotational pieces for injuries and whatnot. And I'm budgeting $14 million for their draft picks. Remember, they got 2 first-round picks. They have an early second-round pick, and then they got a third-round pick as well that's early. So all those picks, that could be a little hefty. Maybe that's a little bit of over, but I don't know. I mean, it depends. If they got the number 1 overall pick, that's going to be at least $7 million on their cap hit. And then their other first round picks going to be about $3 to $4 million or so on the cap hit, depending on how early the Jags are picking. So that right there could be $10+ million, and then the rest of their picks. So, it's always tricky budgeting that in, but it is something you try to do. Now let's look at the roster before the draft. Kind of highlights some needs still. Offenses: quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line. Like offensive line, I just say it in whole because we could use any offensive lineman. I'm going to be drafting probably at least 3 here out. And tight end, blocking tight end could be something we look at. Not super pressing. That's something too that post June 1st they could clear up a little bit more money in other areas. They're going to cut a couple of players here and there. They could bring in a blocking tight end and some depth. So I'm not like super worried about that in general, but it is something they could look at the end of the draft if we want to. Defensively, I'm going to say that just thinking about the future, and I still want to get a cornerback that can compete with Miles Harden in the slot. That would be probably my top need right now. And then future-wise at safety and edge depth. It's the explosive moment, though, you've been waiting for here, and it's draft time. We're taking Ty Simpson, the explosive quarterback over at Alabama, who's been making tons of plays there for the Crimson Tide, rolls into this offense now and can be their quarterback of the future. I totally get it. Dylan Gabriel, he's so young. You got Shedeur Sanders still waiting on him and how he comes along and when he gets his opportunity, if he gets an opportunity, of course. I just feel like as of right now, from what I've seen from the Browns, you got to take a quarterback. Things could change, and we'll definitely be doing more Browns mock drafts. There's no doubt about it. But for right now, I'm taking a quarterback. I'm going Ty Simpson here. And Ty Simpson has been fantastic this year. You could argue he's been the best quarterback in college football. He has really good footwork. I think his arm talent is very good. It shoots out of his arm, right? Maybe he doesn't have the perfect release, but I think he's got arm velocity to him, and he's also got solid accuracy. His decision making is pretty good. My comp for him is Sam Darnold. I've said that I think he looks a lot like Sam Darnold. Overall, we'll see where he turns out to be as a player, but do like him. And so far, I'm starting to get there with since I've only watched 3 games. I watched Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Georgia. Those are the 3 games that I have watched of Simpson so far. So we'll see how the rest of the season works out here, as he's got a game going on today. I'm pretty sure they got a big game versus Tennessee today. I don't know. It's going to be a big one nonetheless. Ty Simpson, let's rock and roll. We're taking him here to be the franchise. Caleb Lomu, going to be the franchise left tackle, to be the blindside protector now for Ty Simpson. I am still very high on Lomu. I think he is a first-round player. I love his athleticism. I like his hand technique. Yes, he's got a little stronger. Maybe work on not oversetting so often. However, overall, I think he's going to be a very good football player. All the things that he has wrong with him are very coachable things that he can get better at. And I do think he can be a franchise stalwart left tackle that this team desperately needs. And they've been looking for since Joe Thomas. Jeremy Bernard, going to be the pick. We're going back to Alabama. We may not be done with Alabama just yet, but we're going to keep rolling it in here with another Crimson Tide. Jeremy Bernard has been the definition of solid for Alabama, and he just does everything well. That's the thing. Like, he's a smooth mover, smooth operator, good route runner. He can block relatively. He's a willing blocker. I mean, he's a really good football player, and I think he's going to come into this offense and be a sure set of hands. Okay, it's kind of an important trade to have them to have right now, and we'll help them out and help out Ty Simpson in this offense. Parker Brailsford, Alabama. I'm done. Okay, I'm sorry. Third Alabama off the board. We're going to limit it there. I actually think that maybe going with Apani Laulu would be more of a safer pick here, because Laulu has some versatility where he could play guard and also center, whereas Brailsford, he's a center-only prospect. So I get that, because then you're saying, okay, Luke Whippler, because I think Whippler is probably more of a center-only type, but I guess he could also play some guard. I just feel like that Brailsford is a fantastic football player, and this would be something where I need to be in the room. How do they feel on Whippler? Do they think he's going to be the starter going forward? If not, Brailsford is a dog, man. I think he's a guy that is super strong for his size. He's a great athletic mover. He has been very, very good at opening up lanes in that offense too, as a run blocker. I don't know what I want to say. It's like he's a size outlier. I would take him no problem. Very good football player. He's honestly, I think he's had the best tape out of any center this year. Traden Stooks as a cornerback. He can also play a little safety for them too if they needed to. If you wanted to make him the long-term safety, they could do that. But Stooks, to me, slide him right into the slot with Miles Harden. He can compete day one. It would shock me if he ends up winning the job. He's a really good football player. He's tenacious in the run game, solid enough athlete. Not an elite athlete by any standards, but he'll get the job done there in the slot and be a good, tough-nosed player that will help them out quite a bit. And also, if nothing else, to be a great special teamer. Then we go on to Eric O'Neal. Oh, this guy's got some fire. You can tell I put the lightning behind him for a reason. Going back to the James Madison days. He is a very interesting player to watch out for and how the offseason approach goes for him and what happens with Eric O'Neal. But definitely a player that has a lot of potential, I'll say that. And if nothing else, I think be a great rotational pass rusher for them. So that's what I'm doing here with the depth. We lost Alex Wright. I want to help get some replacement here with Eric O'Neal, edge rusher from Rutgers. On to Davis and Igapanosin, the secondary help from Ohio State. We're going to talk about Jesse Matthews a lot, who's a really good football player at Ohio State, but this guy's also very good, David Igapanosin. The only problem with Igapanosin, he just really doesn't play the football well, right? You know, he kind of gets lost in the sauce. He stays hip pocket. He's such a physical specimen out there, the way he plays. I love it. Like, if you just want to say, hey, Igbenogson, let's just line up and press, and I want you to just jam him up for 3 seconds. He can do that. You just hope he doesn't get thrown the ball his way because he's not going to be able to locate it consistently. That's really the only thing with Igbenogson. But he'll fight to the end with his arms and try to get his hands in. And he's a solid enough athlete, too, to hang on the outside. And that's what I'm doing here is getting a developmental outside cornerback behind Campbell and Ward. Next pick, we're going with Earl Little Jr., Florida State safety. He's a really good athlete. Got some solid size to him. Nothing crazy, but definitely a good athlete. Needs to work on his tackling. That's probably his biggest Achilles heel right now. However, he could help them out in special teams regard and give him some good depth behind Delpit and also with Rodney Hickman. So let's go on to our next pick, Emmanuel Pagnon. Pagnon, this Frenchman. I don't know if he's actually from French, but it sounds like a French name, Pagnon. But I'm going to take a guard here. He plays left guard at Oregon. He's got some versatility as well from USC days. Somebody that is super strong, super stout. He just doesn't have the lateral movement that he's more of a gap power system guy, period. He's a phone booth blocker. He's got limitations. So that's why he falls. That's why I think he's going to be a later pick. He's going to be a day. You know, his tastes pretty dang good from just watching the games. I feel like he hasn't been a problem for Oregon in their offensive line. So I do want to shout that out. Apani's been really good too. Pagnon, though, give him some more depth in the offensive line. Like, I feel like I'd be a fool for not drafting at least 3 offensive linemen in this draft for this football team. So that's what we're doing. Final pick of the draft, we're going with a more blocking tight end inline guy to pair along with Harold Fanning Jr., Marlon Klein from Michigan, the Wolverine. They teach him well over there, and they know a thing or two about blocking, and Klein can do that. So I'm going to help out that room here. It's not a top priority pick here. I mean, there's some other spots that they could go instead. Maybe, you go with a backup nose tackle sort of thing, depending on the scheme and what they want to do there. Different priorities. For me, though, I'm just going to go ahead and have a blocking tight end in Marlon Klein. So that's going to do it here for the draft. Let me know what you think about that. But the recap here, I'm going to go and start with adding in some free agents with Daniel Falalele. And he's going to be their day one starter over at right guard for them. Zach Zenter, we'll see what he comes along. Maybe he can be the left guard of the future. Pragnon, going to be another competition there. Brailsford, going to give Luke Whippler the competition at center. Overall, just trying to make sure we improve that interior. Same thing with the attack room. Caleb Loam was going to be a day one impact for them. And then they can compete it out between Lucas Jones, Munford, and Conklin. Who can be the right tackle, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. So we need to invest in it. I'm doing that here with Lomu and Brailsford, Pragnon. Quarterback, Ty Simpson. I just think Simpson at this point, I feel like he is the best quarterback in college football at the moment. I'm not saying he's the best draft eligible, like prospect traits wise, all those sort of things, but there's a lot to work with Simpson. He's had that time to be able to develop and really sit for his opportunity. He's made the most of it. And I like that. I mean, that's huge. It really is, because he didn't transfer. He didn't leave. He said, you know what? I'm going to work it out. I'm going to play tough, and I'm going to wait for my opportunity at Alabama. And he did. And then he got Jeremy Bernard, another Alabama player in there to help out that wide receiving, whether it's in the slot, outside, you just put him out there, and he's going to be a dog for them with Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman. And then you got 4 through 6 guys between Corley, Thrash, and Bond. Hopefully, it's enough for your quarterback there. Marlon Klein is some depth at the tight end room, so I feel decent about that. And then defensively was more of a depth and future approach. The priority was definitely on offense, but we get some depth with guys like Igwanosin, O'Neal, and Little. And then somebody that will be able to compete for a day one starter job would be Traden Stoops. That would be the one guy where I'd say, okay, I could see him getting a real chance to beat out Miles Harden right there. And a football player, though, even though he's a super 6-year senior, should be a guy that has a lot of ability to start early on for this football team. That is it for the Cleveland Browns. Let me know what you think, agree or disagree. What would you do differently? There's so many different ways to go, whether it's draft picks, whether it's players, free agency strategy. It's very early in the process. What happens to Kevin Stefanski and maybe even Andrew Berry? All those questions are going to be huge to fill. That is going to be my early edition mock draft for the Cleveland Browns, though. I hope you guys have a good day, and let's freaking go.